David Dacko was a Central African politician who served as the first president of the Central African Republic from August 14, 1960 to January 1, 1966, and as the third president of the Central African Republic from September 21, 1979 to September 1, 1981. He also served as Prime Minister of the Central African Republic from May 1, 1959 to August 14, 1960. After his second removal from power in a coup d'état led by General André Kalingba, he pursued an active career as an opposition politician and presidential candidate with many loyal supporters. Dacko was an important political figure in the country for over 50 years. Early life and education. Dacko was born in the village of Bouchia, near Mbaïki in the Lobaye region, which was then a part of the French Equatorial African territory of Ubangi-Sheri, to Joseph Iniabodé and Marie Okolania. His parents belonged to the same ethnic group. Mgbaka, Ngbaka, he was a distant cousin of future rival Jean-Bédel Bokassa. Soon after Dacko's birth, his family moved to Bouda, where his father worked in a store belonging to a European coffee planter in Bonani named Tancred. In 1937, his father converted to Catholicism, after which he decided to stay married to one wife and sent the others away, including his mother. In 1938, he was sent to live with his uncle, Jerome Gaza in Mbaïki. He began primary school in Mbaïki, where his father worked as a plantation's night watchman. He continued his primary education in Bomberi before being admitted to the Ecole normale of Mouyoundzi in Moyen Congo. Studying for a career in teaching, he became schoolmaster of a large primary school in the capital, Bangui, in 1951. Dacko took part in an experimental educational program promoted by the French colonial administration. Dacko was named principal of Kaonga College in 1955 and became a supporter of independence leader Barthélemy Boganda, who was from the same Ngbaka ethnic group as Dacko. Political career. Early political career. In March 1957, Dacko presented himself as a candidate for legislative elections in Ubangi-Sheri for the circumscription of Ambela Mpoko and won a seat as a member of the Territorial Assembly of Ubangi-Sheri. When the first Council of Government of Ubangi-Sheri was established that same year, Boganda named Dacko Minister of Agriculture, Livestock, Water and Forests, in which position he served from May 14, 1957 until August 23, 1958. Dacko then served as Minister of the Interior and Administrative Affairs from August 23 to December 8, 1958. When the Territorial Assembly became the Legislative Constitutive Assembly on December 1, 1958, Dacko and his fellow territorial councillors became deputies. Dacko remained in the government as the Minister of the Interior, Economy and Commerce, December 8, 1958 to April 30, 1959. Thank you for watching this video. On March 29, 1959, Boganda died in a plane crash. Etienne Nganio was decided upon as the new head of the party as well as Boganda's replacement as the mayor of Bangui. His replacement as president, however, remained undetermined. Abel Gumbo put forward his candidacy, although various circles within the party had reservations about him. Dacko states that he was convinced to accept candidacy by a group of assembly members from Mazan, namely Gabriel Barrett, Thomas Limotomo, Ibrahim Tello, Robert Sama, Belit Herman, and Alphonse Yokaduma. At the plenary meeting of the assembly, his name was put forward as a candidate by Tello, and he was elected president with 39 votes against Gumba's 11. In October 1959, Gumba and Nganio proposed that Dacko be replaced by Pierre Maliam Ho as president, but as it became obvious that the motion would not succeed, they ended up withdrawing it within a week, before it could be discussed at the assembly. First term as president. After independence on August 13, 1960, Dacko became provisional president of the Republic, August 14 to December 12, 1960, and then, with the active French support against rival Abel Gumba, became the first president of the Central African Republic, December 12, 1960 to December 31, 1965. In 1960, He also served as president of the Conference of Prime Ministers of Equatorial Africa. Dacko began to consolidate his power soon after taking office in 1960. He retained the portfolio of Minister of Defense, August 17, 1960 to January 1, 1966, and Keeper of the Seals, August 17, 1960 to January 2, 1963, and amended the constitution to transform his regime into a one-party state with a strong presidency elected for a term of 7 years. On January 5, 1964, Dacko was elected in an election in which he ran alone. During his first term as president, Dacko significantly increased diamond production in the Central African Republic by eliminating the monopoly on mining held by concessionary companies and decreeing that any Central African could dig for diamonds. He also succeeded in having a diamond cutting factory built in Bangui. Diamonds eventually became the country's most important export and remain so today, even though at least half of the country's diamonds are smuggled out of the country. Dacko encouraged the rapid Central Africanization of the country's administration, which was accompanied by growing corruption and inefficiency, and he expanded the number of civil servants, which greatly increased the portion of the national budget needed to pay salaries. The difficulty of securing enough revenues to pay a large number of bureaucrats who are often inefficient and corrupt has been a major problem for the country ever since. Dacko was torn between his need to retain the support of France and his need to show that he was not subservient to France. In order to cultivate alternative sources of support and display his independence in foreign policy, he cultivated closer relations with the People's Republic of China. By 1965, Dacko had lost the support of most Central Africans and may have been planning to resign from the presidency when he was overthrown. Overthrown by Bokassa. On the night of December 31, 1965 to January 1, 1966, General Bokassa carried out a successful coup d'état against Dacko and prevented the possible assumption of power by a rival, Colonel Jean Izamo, head of the National Gendarme Police Force. Dacko, who belonged to the same Ngbaka ethnic group as Bokassa, was imprisoned, placed under house arrest in Lobaye, but then was released on July 16, 1969 and eventually named personal counselor of President Bokassa on September 17, 1976. When Bokassa's rule came under increasing criticism during the late 1970s, Dacko managed to leave for Paris where the French convinced him to cooperate in a coup to remove Bokassa from power and restore him to the presidency. Restored to power. On the night of 20 to 21 September 1979, French paratroopers carried out Operation Barracuda, which overthrew Bokassa and restored Dacko to the presidency. In March 1981, Dacko was elected president of the Republic once again in a reasonably free multi-candidate election. His term began on April 1. Upon return to office, Dacko found himself forced to retain many of the officials who had been part of the Bokassa regime, as the country had no more than 100 trained personnel available for government posts. The retention of this political elite was an additional factor in heightening the resentment against him. Immediately after his restoration, Dacko found financial support from France, who provided his government with $17 million, leading to relative success in his first 6 months. This did not, however, translate to any support from the general international community, who regarded Dacko as a French surrogate. With French support, the European Economic Community was persuaded to give $20 million in aid, which was intended for the revitalization of the crumbling agricultural sector, particularly coffee production, as well as developing infrastructure. Dacko was regarded by many Central Africans as a puppet of the French, and his right to rule was challenged, in particular, by Bokassa's former prime minister, Félix Patassi, who, in addition to belonging to the largest ethnic group in the country, the Gbaya, had residential and kinship ties to other ethnic groups and was the most popular politician in the country. Patassi's opposition drew on the support of high school students as well as young unemployed adults in the shanty towns next to Bangui, such as Muskine. His opposition, however, was quashed by November 1979 with French support. As Dacko's government was sometimes unable to pay wages on time, further discontent arose amongst teachers, students, and deprived urban residents, and led to strike as well as attacks on Dacko's officials. These protests were at times countered by the police. French aid then improved the timeliness of the salary payments, and Dacko was also able to introduce further scholarships for high school and university students, leading to an erosion of opposition. Furthermore, Dacko's government organized the public trials of some of Bokassa's officers. These took place in the main stadium in Bangui and were broadcast on radio, thus increasing Dacko's popularity, despite some skepticism amongst urban Central Africans. Overthrown by Kalingba. On September 1, 1981, Dacko was overthrown in a bloodless coup carried out by Army Chief of Staff General André Kalingba, who may have had the support of local French security officers who are suspected of having acted without authorization by François Mitterrand's new socialist government in France. Such allegations may never be substantiated, but Kalingba did subsequently enjoy a very close relationship with France and a presidential security team led by Colonel Mantillon. Dacko, unharmed, later returned to politics to lead the Movement for Democracy and Development, MDD, a party opposing Kalingba. Dacko participated in the presidential elections of 1992 and 1993 and in the latter obtained 20.1% of the votes cast. Opposition, illness, and death. During Patassi's first and second presidential terms, 1993 to 99 and 1999 to 2003, Dacko continued to participate actively in politics as a leader of the opposition. Dacko and Kalingba were the main leaders of the opposition, with Kalingba having more influence than Dacko. Dacko ran for president for the last time in the 1999 elections, coming in third place with 11.2% of the vote. After General François Bozizé overthrew Patassi and proclaimed himself president, Dacko participated in the Dialogue National Dialogue, that began on September 9, 2003, but shortly thereafter, on September 27, he began suffering effects from his chronic asthma and heart disease. He headed to France to seek treatment, but during a stopover in Yaoundé, Cameroon on November 7, he was taken to the General Hospital of Yaoundé where he died at 10 p.m. on November 20. The Central African government declared a month of national mourning in his memory. On December 13 he was buried in Mokinda, near his residence. Family and awards. In 1952, David Dacko married his first wife, Florence Yagbayo, an ethnic Banzai woman. Their only son, Bruno Dacko, born 1952, is a politician who served as Minister of Tourism from 2003 to 2005. In 1962, he divorced Florence, who had become the country's inaugural First Lady. Yagbayo died in 1992. David Dacko married his second wife, Brigitte Teya, in 1962 shortly after his divorce from his first wife. Brigitte Dacko was from the city of Bimbo and a member of the Ngbaka people. The couple had 7 sons and 4 daughters. Brigitte died on March 31, 2023. David Dacko received many awards and honors during his lifetime, including Commander of the Central African Order of Agriculture, April 23, 1963, Commander of the Central African Order of Academic Palms, June 26, 1964. A major street in Bangui is named after him, Avenue President David Dacko. Thank you for watching this video.